NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now JYRO. That's right, we've rebranded, and JYRO is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but JYRO also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever. So if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, JYRO's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to JYRO.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul JYRO Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that JYRO created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. JYRO is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but JYRO the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. JYRO is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. JYRO is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. JYRO captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! All right, back in the can for another edition of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void with some familiar faces and a really cool topic of conversation that I've wanted to get into for a while, especially with these guys. So let's dive into it. Who the fuck are you guys and what do you do?
I'm Julien Peelman. I'm in charge of R&D for New Zealand Aerosports. And I've been working for this company for about 12 years, I think. So it involves designing new products, improving current products, dealing with issues we may have on current products as well.
Nice. I had a lot of people chomping at the bit when they found out that you were on the podcast before, because obviously you're well known for some pretty intense canopies that are out there. One of the definite things we want to talk about now. So who next do we have?
My name's Chris Snell. I've been with NZ Aerosports for about 5 years now, just coming up. And I work mainly on the production side of things. So that's day-to-day running of the factory, and also all of the kind of new concepts that come through that Julien comes up with. I also try and help bolt those things together. Take them out for a jump.
Nice. And bringing up the rear, who else we got?
always from the rear. I'm Chris Stewart, and cheers for that, Dean. And I'm the head test jumper at NZ Aerosports, and currently that means just sitting in an office a lot and no jumping. But yeah, I've done my intro a couple of times.
Yeah, fair enough. You guys just had another lockdown not that long ago, didn't you?
Yeah, but the end is nigh because apparently we can travel out of our little imprisonment mid-December. So, and jumping hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Oh, that's awesome. You guys got to just be chomping at the bit.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of like for the stay-at-home lockdown, it's kind of hard to run production when nobody's making anything. So
yeah, for
feels
sure
good to be back in the factory at least.
Well, now we've kind of got the A team here, the rock stars that are putting out pretty much the cutting edge nylon into the sport now. Between Julien and the two Chris's, we've got concept, we've got production, and we've got test jumping. And I'm really curious to know, and I'm sure a lot of people are, exactly how a canopy goes from concept to sitting in my D bag. I know there's a lot of shit that goes on between it. And if anybody is even slightly like me, we're completely oblivious to how it's really done. And I really do want to know how it goes. So why don't we start, Julien, with you? When you start out with a concept, how do these ideas come to you or to whoever they do? And how do you start taking it from just that idea?
It may vary a lot from one project to another. Sometime we start from an idea of how to improve parachutes in general, and then we try to think on which product or future product we could implement this. Sometimes it starts from a need from the market, so a canopy that doesn't exist. And for example, when wingsuiting came up, there was an obvious need for dedicated canopy, and we tried to fill this gap. And yeah, sometimes it's just refreshing an existing product. So we listen to customers and to people in the field to know what we could do better, what they would like, and we start from there.
Okay, so it comes down to people coming to you and going, "Hey, we need a canopy that can do this or that or the other thing, or this kind of fits it, but it's not doing the job right." Or obviously, with something like the Kraken, it's a very specialized canopy, and that's just driven by desire in the sport. So when that idea happens, Chris, at what point does production start to get involved? I mean, obviously Julien's got a lot of stuff that he's got to do for the design, but when do you start getting in there and putting panels together and doing all that stuff?
It's actually pretty early on in the process. I mean, obviously Julien comes up with a design for something, but it's normally pretty rough around the edges to start with. And obviously the conceptual designs in 3D don't always translate into being able to cut the panels or bolt them together properly. So pretty much from the beginning, we're already cutting panels and just seeing if we can actually put the thing together, and making design tweaks, and just relaying that information back to Julien. Like, this worked, this is hard. We'd like to try and make this more simple.
Sure.
It's nothing worse than a bag of round pegs and a bunch of square holes. So
there's no doubt about that, especially when it comes to something like a parachute. Now, how did you get your start in doing this type of work?
I actually got my rigging ticket over in the US just as a bit of a side project, or 2013, somewhere around there, with a couple of awesome riggers down at Skydive Sebastian. And I just kind of did it just as a something to learn. I never really thought that it would get me anywhere. And then, yeah, traveled to New Zealand about 8 years ago. Found a job packing at a drop zone. It's actually down in Taupo. And then moved up to the Bay of Islands, where I spent a couple of years working at Skydive Bay of Islands.
Nice.
And yeah, just doing a lot of the rigging work around the drop zone. But as with any skydive job, it kind of got a little bit too weather dependent. Winters are pretty slow. You must know that from being over here.
Sure.
So yeah, it's just kind of looking for a bit more of a full-time job, and kind of got told never make any money in skydiving unless it's got a tandem rating. So I was like, fuck that. Yeah, I think. So Yeah, kind of. I knew a lot of people at Aerosports anyway, so I just kind of moved into a more natural progression to get more into rigging type stuff. Like I really enjoy the equipment side of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's funny from the outside looking in, it seems to be a real theme with NZ Aerosports that it's a collection of people that had no idea that they were going to end up doing what they're doing.
Exactly. It's kind of like it's the center of a whirlpool, and kind of everyone swells around and it just gets smashed together. This awesome team.
It's funny though. I mean, though, because I've talked to a number of different people. All three of you, I think, had no intentions of going into the type of work that you're doing, but you've ended up being at the top of the field. I mean, NZ Aerosports is cutting edge shit, and I mean, here you are guys, basically leading the way, all of which had no plan of doing this kind of thing, which is cool to me. It says a whole lot about NZ Aerosports that they're thinking well outside of the box in regard to where they're pulling their talent from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm still on my 5-month sabbatical from my office job in the UK, which is about 20 years ago.
That sounds like a pretty proper sabbatical. And Mr. Stewart, the last time we talked to you, you were like burning shit down and breaking stuff at boogies and all of this. How
Standard.
Yeah, normal stuff for you. When do you get involved in regard to this part of the whole process? Are you looking over shoulders as they're starting to cut panels and put things together and tossing out ideas, or are you waiting until they've got you actually testing this stuff?
Well, I guess from the start, because we generally have like a fortnightly catch up together, and especially when it's new concepts, like Julien we'll help come up with the decision of what we're going to be making. Julien obviously makes it, but we all get to have an eye in as it goes, just to see, even if for the most part I don't understand what Julien's doing, I get to see the pictures and think that looks fast. But we all get to see it from the start. Julien obviously is we're all kind of part of it all the way through, I guess, but Julien's the main part at the start. Snelly is quite involved. I think he didn't give himself credit there with Julien at the start as well. Like he's been getting a lot more involved in some of the designing stuff as well and coming up with ideas to pitch to Julien, which is really cool. So Snelly's kind of become this perfect middleman of he has a rough idea of what Julien's doing, but then also works directly with the sewers. So he's pretty invaluable in that respect. And then I've been sort of hovering over Snelly recently as well, just seeing what he does, because obviously I come just from a full-time skydiving background. So I'm just give me parachute, make me jump. Sure. But it's nice to start being involved in a little bit. So I get to see most of the process. Whether I understand all of it fully is a different question. But basically, from the time we start putting panels together, we start talking about sort of ideas on what we think how it's gonna perform. We never know until we actually jump it, but on paper we have a rough idea. And then once we're in the full swing of things and we've actually got it rigged and QC'd, we're good to go. And Snelly's a big part of that too. Like he can't come test jumping quite as much as me, but he does come out like when we are jumping, usually 1 day a week, which is really, I think, pretty handy when you have someone who's part of building the canopy and actually helping the processes that go into it and helping the ladies who put it together and understanding what's working and what's not. He gets to see it, and under canopy, it's nice. I guess my point of view under canopy is I'm looking for performance. I'm trying to feel every niggle that it has, but I'm not the mechanic. I didn't put it together. So Snelly in some respects is, which means when he's under canopy and looking at it, he kind of gets to see it from a different eye. So I feel like, obviously between the three of us, it's a bit cliche to say, but we all kind of complement each other in that respect. I've got the most jumping experience, but that doesn't necessarily mean I know how the parachute gets put together the best, which is definitely, not true. So it's kind of, we've all got a look in all the way through, and then Julien's overseeing everything from the start to the finish. And then my main portion is obviously the end when the fun stuff happens, as long as it's not scary.
For sure. Well, I think it's really kind of cool that you mentioned, Snelly, you do test jumping as well, which is, it kind of falls into an adage in aviation. For me, I don't ever want to fly an airplane that the mechanic doesn't want to ride in. So the fact that you're out jumping as well says a lot for your faith or your daring in regard to what you do. But I mean, have you ever saddled out under a canopy that you've built going, all right, shit?
Wow. I was going to say, like, although I'm definitely a big part of the production team, we actually have like some amazing talent out on the production floor. So can't take all the credit for putting things together. I've got distinctly average sewing skills, but we've got some incredibly talented people that help us out. So big thanks to those guys. But yeah, absolutely. Jumping something that you've literally just been part of putting together, taking out. Like, I don't have as much experience as Stewie when it comes to the skydiving portion. So I actually leave kind of a lot of the first jumps on a new prototype to Stewie. He's definitely more apt on that.
Sure.
But once he gives kind of a couple jumps on it, gives me the nod on the wing, then I'll take it for a jump. But yeah, it's nice to be under canopy. Obviously, like when you're putting something together in the factory, you can't really tell what it's going to actually look like, other than the picture that Julia might have sent me from the CAD software. So it's nice to actually sit under it and go, yes,
Sure.
bit of a crease there, bit of a flat there. So I'm definitely looking more from a putting it together side of things and hucking a big swoop on it straight out the gate.
For sure. Well, and I would imagine it's a completely different set of eyes. Obviously, as Chris said, he's looking for performance. You're looking at the way it's built, and Julian's seeing the entire picture. Now, we all know which canopies have been put out that are performers and have done really well. I want to hear about one that was complete shit. I want to hear about a disaster that looked good and it got all the way to being put together and, you know, scared the shit out of the test jumper, just did not do anything that you thought it was going to do. I want a good story.
Take it away, Julian.
I think we have a pretty famous one. It was called CC1 at the time. I don't think the two Chris's were involved much back then, but it was called CC1 for concept car number 1. And the idea was to put all the innovation we have been working on one canopy.
Okay.
And there are things that we understand now, but we didn't at the time. And this canopy was flying super, super fast, but was collapsing all the time. And I think 2 test jumpers that were testing at the time stopped after this. So we ended up having no test jumper. One moved to Norway, and the other one stopped skydiving. So that was a bit of a disaster.
Holy
but it was fast.
shit!
It was fast.
You made 2 guys quit their chosen profession and move and quit the sport. Man, that's pretty intense.
That story, Julie, that was Malachi, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Shout out to Malachi. So he came over and he showed me that video. And I think he's understating when he says it's fast, Dean. Basically, he released the brakes and it went from regular horizon, like, you know, a regular picture. And he has the camera on his belly. And then it goes from, he releases the brake and it goes from that. And it looks like the angle was pretty much head down. Like the canopy just drives and then is basically flying straight towards the ground.
Oh, Jesus.
It's terrifying. I did not work for Aerosports then, and I was okay with it.
So it had an anti-recovery arc.
Pretty much, yeah. It was super aggressive.
Now, I mean, it's got to be, Julian, when you're putting stuff like that together, well, all 3 of you guys, it's got to be a bit nerve-wracking if you're the one that's designed it and put it together and you look up in the sky to see the test jumper clearly getting his head handed to him. It's got to be really scary if you're seeing it without being under it. I mean, Julian, you must get nervous when these guys start initially jumping new canopies.
Yeah, of course. In this case, I was not in the drop zone, so I didn't see it live, but I've seen things going wrong live a couple of times too, and it is really scary. I would not say it's worse than being under the canopy itself. I prefer to see it and be scared from far. But
that's why you live in Spain.
It's definitely not a comfortable situation.
So in that particular instance, what was causing the canopy to do that? Obviously, without getting too technical.
We modified the inlets on the nose, on the leading edge, and because we saw in the CFD in simulation software, so CFD stands for computational fluid dynamics, and it simulates the airflow around the canopy. We knew that there was something to do around the inlet to improve the performance. So we made this change, which dramatically increased the performance, but we did not change the trim of the canopy. So the canopy ended up having much less drag and fly faster and faster until it went faster than the pilot itself. So it started diving. So it required to change the trim at the same time. And the shame is that the canopy has been retrimmed a bit flatter since, but weirdly enough, nobody has been wanting to jump it again. So it's still sitting on the shelf with the flatter trim, brand new line set, and waiting for someone to jump it.
Stewie, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, due to our new health and safety, I'm the only one who can actually jump it. And I'm not sure I'm just ready for that. It is sitting there. I remember when we moved factories recently, I bagged it up and it's sat safely in a box at the back of a shelf in a storage container.
Is that a jump you make when you've got other employment opportunities for when you retire?
I think that's the jump I make when I get a bonus incentive.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well,
no, just be a big incentive.
The fact that you said go ahead.
So I was going to say, I think that's one that I don't even think Julian's asked me to jump it. I know the modification's been made and I know we've spoken about it, but no one's actually asked me. So in my defense, I'm not saying no. I just haven't been asked.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that might be the next podcast.
Oh, God.
So, well, the fact that he says that the nylon is going faster than the pilot. I mean, fucking hell. I can't even wrap my head around that. That's some intense shit right there.
Yeah, it's pretty. I guess the thought of it, it's funny actually when we talk about because we've got a couple of sort of Petra-esque prototypes sitting at the factory and they're waiting to be jumped, which will get some people excited, I guess. It's a long way away if you're listening. There's your disclaimer, Julian. I've got you covered. But the people, I guess, they see the end product, you know. So you see like Petra now, and it's a weapon, and it's fucking amazing, and it's so good to fly, and it's so stable. We can take it terminal. It's a beast. But I think I've spoken when I've been on the show previously about how people like Attila jumped the prototypes before Petra, and they were fucking terrifying. Like that video of Attila getting wrapped up in the canopy from it collapsing. So I think some people forget sometimes that when the product's released, to get it to that point, there might have been some scary moments, and there's definitely some moments where, you know, you're about to jump out of the plane and you're puckering up a bit.
That's the thing too, right? I mean, from all three ends, between the concept of production and the jumping, there's a lot of nerves that go into putting a new canopy together. I mean, it's obviously skydiving is a pretty intense sport regardless, but you guys are like pushing it big time when you're literally scaring everyone involved with just one jump. You know, I mean, when you're putting these things together and you've come up with the concept and it ends up being something like Petra, I think you're right. People don't see or don't even think about what it took to get there. So that's one of the reasons that I think this is such a great talk and a great topic, is so people have an idea of exactly what goes into putting out a parachute that can perform like the Petra.
Yeah, one nice thing I guess is...
Sorry, you go.
All right, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say one nice thing though is I guess we can all learn from previous projects and test jumping. Like anything that produced a scary result always goes on a big list of things not to do in the future. So I actually feel like the more prototypes we make, the more variety of canopies we make, the more we learn.
Oh, absolutely.
About those things that make it scary. So it's, I want to say test jumping feels safer than it used to, but I definitely feel like we're progressing in a way that does make it safer by, okay, we know where some of the limits are. We're not going to go play over there anymore.
Sure. Well, I have a tough time wrapping my head around being able to go from the very beginning of something like the Petra and coming up with the idea now with the computer systems and the CAD programs and all that. But I can't wrap my head around how they could manage to design parachutes before all these computer systems. It was sew it up and jump the fucking thing, which is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, and it was really hard. I have to say, I don't really know how they were doing it neither. But there was also a period where innovation was much slower because of this.
Sure.
So there was a lot of copying and changing the color of the line tabs. And so there was a really innovative period at the beginning where to make it work, they had to try many different things. But then once they had something that was working, there was a period that was a bit less innovative or not at the same pace. And nowadays with the simulation, with all the tools we have, it goes much faster. So
for sure. Now, when it comes to the production side of things, about how long from the time you get the concept from Julien does it take to knock up a working prototype?
When we've got the dedicated resources, it's actually a pretty short turnaround. Obviously, we've got a quite a long lead time at the moment, but we actually save space in production for prototyping. So we don't want to slow down on that kind of thing. Once I've got the concept, like getting from starting to cut the panels through to maybe a bit of back and forth with Julien with some questions, we can normally turn a prototype round in less than a week.
Wow.
If everything's running smoothly. Obviously there's conversations back and forth with the machinist and with the QC team, because obviously if it's not a final product, there isn't the actual finished spec sheet to work from to say, yep, that's good, that's good. So there's definitely a lot of involvement to say, yeah, that's the new kind of idea or concepts that we're trying on this canopy to work through the QC stage. But yeah, it can, if everything's running pretty smooth, normally about a week, we can get it from cutting to ready to rig.
Now, Chris, how do you feel about that when you've been handed a canopy that was just an idea a week before, and now you're being asked to go jump it?
No, I mean it's like what Julien said. Just with how much quicker we can progress now, it's good. I would rather if it goes from being a concept to being made and we're happy with it in a short space of time, it means there were less hiccups. Sometimes we might have one that it goes through and it starts getting put together and it's like, that doesn't work. We need to go back to Julien to see if he can figure out how these panels should go together or make a change to the design. Then we kind of get this Franken-zombie, which isn't the worst either. But if it goes from A to B nice and smoothly, then, and depending on the design of the canopy, what level it's at, it's, I trust everyone that works on it. So I feel more than comfortable jumping there. And if it goes in such a quick period, like I said, it just means everything's gone sort of to plan and we're quite happy with it. So pretty comfortable, to be honest.
Awesome. Now, in regard to the production, that's one of the things that I don't know a whole lot about. Obviously, this has got to be, it's an extremely specialized production line that you're going through. It's got to be so precise. So what goes into actually building one of these canopies? How are you cutting the cloth? How are you laying it out? How is it being sewn?
Bizarrely, it's actually not too dissimilar from a production canopy. It's actually just, like I say, I'll try and follow the canopy around from all the stages. Like I know more about kind of the line making, cutting side of things and rigging and quality control. But obviously a lot of the hard work is in the sewing. So we actually have a couple of people, we've got very capable people, but generally we just have a couple of people working on prototypes. So I actually get a lot of feedback from the machinists. Like I'm definitely no high-end machinist when it comes to sewing. So actually getting feedback from the people that are putting our production canopies together every day is super, super valuable. So a lot of the amendments that come up or little tweaks or changes to the cut file actually comes from the people making it. I definitely can't take credit for all of those. I just kind of put the list together, relay it back to Julien, get the tweaks made. But yeah, so although I'm kind of coordinating things on production, I'm actually relying a lot on the skill of the people on the production floor.
Okay. And hey, guys, hang on just a second. I seem to have an issue with the recording going on. Hang on. All right, technical fuck ups aside, we were talking about production and how you're building these canopies, because I'm curious. I know sewing. Sewing is me trying to sew up the crotch of a worn out pair of shorts with a needle and thread. This is obviously not that. So what goes into putting these parachutes together?
Yeah, so I guess it's maybe a little bit more than that, but yeah, I guess obviously a canopy starts life as a roll of fabric sitting under the cutting table. So we'll get the cut file that's been designed, lay the fabric out, use a CNC cutting machine. So it basically goes around, it plots all the marks on the canopy and then follows around with the hot knife to cut the panels out. So once it goes from there, heads off to one of our machinists. They work their magic. There's about anything from 12 to 17 hours of just sewing on the canopy.
Wow.
To give you some kind of idea, depending on its complexity. So obviously there's a myriad of different bits and pieces that goes into the sewing stage. But we have kind of running in parallel with that, we've got a really awesome lines and rigging team. So their kind of department is building the line set for the canopy. And then once the canopy's been sewn together, we do one of our quality control checks, make sure everything's good for the sewing. Once that's been done, goes off to the lines and rigging team. That line set that they've just made will get put onto the canopy and assembled. And then that's when it'll kind of come back through to our QC team and they do a final measure and double check of everything that's on the canopy. So there's quite a few QC stages involved in the building of the parachute. Obviously, we want to make sure everything's good, but anything that we do need to maybe touch up on or correct, we pick it up early enough in the process that it doesn't cause too many problems down the line.
I mean, yeah. I always looked at a completed canopy, and the first time I ever looked into a rigid wing with all the airlocks and all the different chunks of cloth that go into this, and the ribs and the top skin and bottom skin, and it's dizzying how much cloth there actually is and all the thread that's involved. I mean, quality control must be insane because you've got, I mean, depending obviously on the canopy, so many different parts that have to be sewed together. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, we're actually quite lucky. Our QC team, we've got a couple of people that are kind of grown up in-house, but we've also got a couple of guys that are really experienced, come from really experienced rigging background. So even before they got to aerosports, they had incredible knowledge of canopies and how they're put together. So it really helps us with it's one of the jobs in-house. It takes a very long time to kind of gain the experience to come up in that area, but like I say, we've been blessed with some awesome people coming from experienced backgrounds, so that really helps.
That's awesome. Well, and I mean, just as a team too, you guys have been working together long enough that you've kind of gelled. I know Chris, especially being at the kind of the end of the production line and starting that test jumping, I'm sure you want to have a whole lot of faith in the team that's handing you this nylon that you're going to get out and jump, especially when it's the really high performance stuff, because everybody's seen videos where it goes from happy to holy shit in the blink of an eye. I mean, it can get pretty intense. So there's got to be a lot of faith in that team, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things is, as Snelly was talking, and you hear kind of all the different processes, it kind of brings to light that we are, three people part of a very big team, like we all everyone plays a key role. Obviously, designing a canopy is what people think of first, and like who designed it and that sort of stuff, and then we get who jumped it and that sort of thing. But the team all the way through, you know, like we've got the boys making the lines, and I trust them. I don't ever second guess anyone's work. I trust the guys checking, the quality control guys, and then we've got the amazing ladies making and putting the canopies together. And it's quite funny actually. It made me think of there's been a couple of times when I've left and the ladies know that I'm going to jump the canopy that I've put together, and they give me like a nervous good luck, and I kind of look at them. I'm like, I wouldn't jump it if I didn't trust you. So I completely trust the entire team and everyone that, you know, puts their heart and soul into making each canopy. And especially when it's a prototype. And I think it's really cool for everyone involved that, you know, they got to be a part of something that went from, you know, Julien's concept in his crazy French mind to something that, you know, I'm jumping or Snelly's jumping. So obviously, yeah, complete trust. And like I said, I wouldn't jump something if I didn't have faith in the prototype or the team that put it together.
Sure. Now, that being said, there's also the human factor, though. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. I make more mistakes in a day than I possibly want to admit to. There's got to be mistakes that can get through all the quality control all the way down the line. I mean, have you ever had any issues where you're like, wait a second, by the time it's gotten to jumping and stuff that's happened like that?
Yeah, I mean, let's not mistake like trusting the team with perfection. Are two completely different things. I trust them. It doesn't mean we're all perfect, myself included. So there has been a couple ones. I've never actually cut away from a prototype in my 5-6 years at Aerosports. So some people are quite shocked by that, but I think it kind of goes back to what Julien was saying. You know, the technology that we have to build these canopies now is so much more advanced than pen and paper that a lot of the information that we need is kind of done before it's even built. So we have a pretty rough, you know, a decent idea that this should fly. We just need to figure out how well. But that being said, there is a reason I get a little bit nervous before I jump sometimes, and it's a good nervous. I quite enjoy it. But for example, the high performance canopies like Petra, when you know, we're jumping sub 70s as a prototype, and Julien's made a little modification, and on the Petras, when we jump them on anything high performance, on all canopies actually, but specifically the Petras, or that style of canopy, that level of canopy, when we do a test jump, the first test jump is done from altitude because we need maximum time on that wing.
Sure.
To make sure, you know, I've got basically on the first jump is me doing control inputs and deciding, am I going to land this or am I going to cut it away? Now, I will jump out, and there's been a few occasions when that canopy's open higher, it might react a little bit differently than it does lower.
Sure.
So you're jumping a 67 Petra concept, and you jump out, you open, the opening's a bit of a slammer, but that's all right. It was sub-terminal, you'll get through it. And then you move on and you release the brakes, and it starts doing this weird jellyfish thing. And you're like, God, I hope it doesn't do this for too long. I'm supposed to pull on a front riser at some point to make sure it doesn't collapse.
Right.
So there has been a couple of situations, you know, especially when we're building something that's so small, a millimeter out here and there can change the wing drastically over the whole scope of it. So I have, I say with a nervous laugh, jumped a couple where I'm like, not supposed to do that. I'm pretty sure that's not part of the design. But I do my control checks, and then, you know, if I decide it's straight to land, it's safe to land without pushing the shit out of it, I'll land it, which has been my judgment's been very good, except one time, which was on a Petra concept. This is a good one for error through the chain. I was jumping this canopy, and it was stable when I was checking it around $5,000, but there was no turbulence. So this was being jumped on a hot day.
Okay.
And I think this video has actually been released. It's on one of our little testy videos. And basically, it was all good. The canopy was flying safe, but I was like, okay, I'm just going to do like a little 90 and just toggles, basically, just coming nice and safe and straight. And as I got lower, I was with my setup pattern, I was flying over some hangars, and there was a bit of heat rising off them. So now I had thermal turbulence, and the canopy did a little buffet, and I was like, well, I didn't do that before. And I'm at like
1,500 feet. There's no turning back.
Sure.
I've committed to this landing. And then I remember I was going over the swoop pond. I wasn't swooping the pond, but I was my base leg was going over it, and the canopy pretty much fully collapsed at around 1,200 feet. And then I managed to get it, like it was just for a very brief second, and then it came back. And then I came straight in, and then on the video, belly cam, you can see me. I'm nervous, obviously, after that. I keep it together, and I land, and I just like slide it on my bum, no harm, no foul. And I was like, is this canopy so far on the edge? What the fuck's going on with it?
Right.
So Julien, we go back, we give Julien the feedback, and he gets to look at it, and then he figures out there's an issue with the line set. So it shouldn't have actually been jumped anyway, like the way it was. But that canopy went all the way through the system. So it does show you that, there can be sometimes holes in the cheese. But
Sure.
That's probably my scariest one. And I think Julien he can touch on that more to say what happened, maybe.
Yeah, in the end, there was a mistake in one of the formula in Excel, and which we used to design the line set. And so because it's so early in the process, it's in the design, it's when we design something, it can actually go through many quality control stages without being noticed, because if the design I give and everything is made according to this design, they cannot do better at the quality control to say, yeah, it's matching the way it should be designed. Sure. The way it should be made. So they have no way to see a mistake like this. So actually, since that, Chris Snell got more involved into really early, I guess we can call it quality control as well, and looking at even the Excel sheets, some of the formulas, looking at the changes that were made, see if they make sense. Trying different size for this canopy to see if anything looks weird when scaled up, scaled down, etc. So we're improving, but sometimes it's really hard to see something that is deep in a formula in a spreadsheet.
Sure. Well,
it's like staring at the matrix. Sometimes it's like formulas that are like 5 feet long. You're trying to spot mistakes and errors.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, I come from a skydiving culture that you have your rig, you go jump out of an airplane, you do this, you do that, you do the other, and you don't put a lot of thought. My generation certainly didn't put a lot of thought in what went into it. I mean, the canopies that were coming out were starting to really be innovative canopies, like when the Velocity first came out with PD years and years and years ago. But the Stiletto, which I think is before all your guys' time, when that initially came out, I still had no idea what went into the production of a canopy like that. And it just seems to have gotten more and more advanced since then, dramatically so.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Actually, funny you say the Stiletto. That was the first canopy I ever owned.
Really?
The old oversteerer. Yeah, like I've stopped doing an input. Oh no, I'm still turning. How good? Let's go.
Yep. The old spin.
Everyone knows. Yeah, that's what it was described to me as. I remember getting that canopy when I was a new jumper, just thinking like, wait, what's the nickname of this canopy? Why did I buy this? But no, good times. I've seen the light since then, so I'm good now.
Well, and it was cutting edge back then.
Yeah, but I guess like when you think about it, everything is cutting edge for the time you're in.
Sure.
So we're kind of at that process. I think the other thing as well that we've kind of come across with the canopies and Julien as well, to improve on something like the Petra, it was such a leap and bound with him and JYRO working on that now you're in competition with yourself almost, would you say, Julien? Like we're trying to, like, not to sound, to anyone listening that we're better than everyone, but we are better than everyone. And we're trying to outdo ourselves all the time. And I guess, Julien, in this specific instance, you're trying to outdo your own designs. So I guess you could touch on how that is sometimes, because you are trying to beat yourself.
Yeah, I guess with Petra has been around for a while now, and yeah, we're trying to make a new version, and we're trying many things. But yeah, we realized that we got lucky in some aspect, because there were some really good aspects of the design that we did not fully understand at the time that were working really well. But now we're trying to improve it. It's not that easy. There's still huge margin of improvement, but we need to go find them.
I think it's honestly, my hat's off to you for that last comment, because I don't think a lot of people would admit, yeah, we just kind of got lucky with some of this shit. We had no idea that it was going to work as good as it did. But obviously, it's those kind of happy mistakes that are either positive or negative when you're flying that seem to lead to these innovations. Because if it was up to guys like me, a new parachute wouldn't have come out in the last 20 years. It just, you guys are the ones that are driving it forward, because I don't personally see how you could make something more effective than Petra. And I've never jumped one. I only watch it, and it scares the shit out of me. What do you look at when you see something like the Petra, and as amazing as it performs, how do you look at that and go, we can do better?
Well, with the CFD and simulation software, either structural or fluid dynamics, we can see a lot more than anyone can see in real life. Sure. You can look at the flow at any point, the pressure on the surface, inside. You can look at how the fabric stretches here or there, and you can try things really quickly. What if I put this reinforcing more this shape? How is it going to work? So we get to see much more than the customers or the jumpers can see.
Sure.
So it's much easier to get ideas of what to change.
Nice.
I also want to say that the process is really iterative. So on the product, from the jumper perspective, you see big steps in innovation and in design, but internally we go smaller or bigger, but always in iteration. And so we're seeing earlier that it starts with me and doing the design, then goes to Chris Snell doing the production of the prototype, then Stewie is going to jump it. But this is not the linear process of designing a product. We go through this as a cycle, as an iteration, maybe 20, 50 times to design a given product.
Sure.
So by then we have time to learn a lot about each aspect of the parachute and to see a lot.
Nice.
So it's really different experience.
I know, and this question is probably a stupid one to some degree, but where do you see, is there a line out there that, all right, this is as far as we're going to get? I mean, obviously, as far as innovation goes, you're always looking to continue to innovate in regard to safety and reliability. But do you guys see kind of a brick wall in regard to performance?
I don't. Yeah. I think it's infinite. If you look at other sports or other industries, especially industries where they have a lot of money to do a lot of research and development, you see it's endless. If you look at cars, and you look at how the engines have been improved for maybe 100 years, you can see that there's always something to improve, something new. And then there are big steps that are hard to predict, and we don't know how the big disruptions are going to come. But it might be a totally new fabric. It might be a new material, new tool to design, or a brand new idea coming from someone. But I think there's work for a few centuries.
Yeah. I think it was kind of, Dean, kind of like what you were saying before about like when the stiletto was out. At the time, it's hard to imagine going beyond what you think is the most advanced product or whatever it will be at the time. I think like a good way to look at it is just to see the evolution of tunnel flying. People have learned how to do things better. So when the first wind tunnels came out, people were just ordering pizzas and delivering pizzas all the time.
Yep.
And now that technique is so refined and so different. So especially like I guess you can be limited by the technology of your time, but that's always advancing. So where it will go is going to be insane. But
well, now I know
we're going
that
to be eventually, yeah.
Indoor canopy flying.
Yeah, right. Well, no, what you guys need to start working on is the Star Trek automatic repacking parachute. See that movie where they
thousands of people out of a job?
Yeah, fair enough. But man, you push a button and the parachute's back on your back. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Awesome.
Now,
that would make us rich.
Yeah, right. Now, in regard to the materials as well, one of the big innovations that came up not that long ago, well, I guess it was a while ago now, but am I correct in saying that was the sailcloth, the really rigid cloth?
Yeah, that was actually the material in itself is not that recent. It's used in skydiving because it's coming from paraglider. It's just fabric that they use for paragliding. But the way to use it on our canopies is definitely a bit more recent. And to manage to get that working, given the constraint of our sports, which is mainly the opening, is the innovation in itself. The material has been around. It's just a different coating on the nylon. But yeah, making it work on our canopies to get the performance out of it is definitely a bit newer.
Now, when you're talking about the higher performance canopies, the really high end stuff and the competition canopies, what's the difference between a regular high performance canopy and a competition canopy in regard to the production and the materials and stuff?
I think the difference is the compromise. If you look at high performance canopy, like the layer, you need to compromise on some things because you want the good openings, you want it to last really long, you want it to pack small. So you have a whole bunch of criteria that you're trying to match at the same time, and this is not easy. Well, when you go to competition, people don't care if they have to jump with a big rig, if it opens average, and so you can play much more. And you don't have to compromise as much.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things, again, not being a competitive canopy pilot, hearing the competitors talk about harder openings and all the different things that they have given up, but obviously they're happy to do it for that extra performance. So when you're talking your daily jumping canopies, though, where does the line with the NZ Aerosports, where does it go up to that it's, okay, these canopies are all good for the daily jumper that's shooting video and this and that, and here on is the hardcore competition stuff? Where does the line go?
I think maybe Stu, you can say more on this, but I think we have a saying that some of our canopies are for every day, but not for everyone. So even Petra, you can drop it every day if you want to, but that is if you have the skill. So all the canopies are good to be used intensively, and they will perform every day. But if you are the person to pilot it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and Stewie, I was kind of aiming at where's that line for I'm gonna end up if I'm jumping a canopy that's got stiffer openings every day that you're competing in, as opposed to going out and shooting video. Is that the Petra forward, and then the Leia back is the guys that are out shooting video?
Yeah. So like I think the Leia, you kind of certainly in a way can be described as like, the everyday working Petra, so to speak. You get that performance, but like Julien was talking about before, it's you compromise performance, but you get better openings, you get something that's easy to pack, you get better longevity out of the material. So that's your compromise. I know people that jump Petras for work. This is how we were talking about, got a couple of things lucky. Petra opens awesome. As long as it's not ridiculously loaded, it opens really nice terminal. And that's just one of those things where it was like, awesome. That's how fortunate that this is how this has worked out. So you can, but then it just comes down to what you're willing to compromise on. okay, I'm going to rag out my competition Petra because I prefer jumping it everyday fun jumping. This means I'm going to have to buy another wing, you know, in the space of a year. And everyone knows, if you know how expensive they are, it's not a cheap skydiving sort of option.
No.
But I think in terms of like the other style of canopies from when we test it, and with Snelly as well, we might jump something and be like, we had some prototypes a while ago and they were non-cross brace. They were kind of sort of to be this, you know, the bridge between something like a Crossfire and a cross brace canopy. And we were jumping them and it was like, I got to jump a couple of the older ones and they were weapons. And you land and you're like, that was awesome. That is not appropriate for the person we're aiming it for, because it's non-cross brace. So for, you know, how a lot of federations, their rules will be like, you can't jump a cross brace canopy. It's like, well, here's a non-cross brace canopy that performs as well as one.
Right.
So from a test jumping point of view, when we get prototypes and things like that, one of our jobs is it's a weird thing to say, but sometimes Snelly and myself will come back to Julien and be like, it dives too much. It's a little too quick.
It's too good.
Dial it back.
Yeah, we need to dial this one back. So, yeah, it's an interesting one when we get that in the R&D.
So now to be a little bit more on the technical side, Julien, when they come to you and say, dial this back, or we want a little more performance out of this, what do you have an initial thing that you look to adjust or change? I mean, how big are the differences between a mid-range performance canopy and high-end canopy in regard to design?
It's much easier to dial something back than to push the limit. So when we are designing a product that is more mid-range, we know a bit what parameters we can play with. We can play with the platform. We can play with the trim, making it steeper or flatter. We can try to change a little bit the roll sensitivity by changing the line set or the lobe of the canopy. So we have these parameters and we know how to play with them by now. As I was saying, when it gets much more complicated is when you play with many different criterias. And for example, for the Kraken, we had like what we wanted to do is something lighter that lasts longer than the competition, that opens better, but also flares good. And it's easy to make canopy that flares well, one that is light and packed small, one that lasts longer. When it becomes challenging is when you're trying to do everything at the same time.
And I would imagine that's just a matter of kind of going one step at a time. Do you dial one area in and go, okay, we've got that, now we need to adjust to fix this? Or are you literally just going, nope, we needed to do all of this at the same time?
No, we tend to work on different aspects a bit separately. We will work on the flare, let's say, because we notice that this prototype is not flaring well enough. So we will focus on this, which means working on the brakes configuration, on the trim, and on the profile of the canopy. And then we move on to openings. So we'll change different things like the slider, like the platform, and it can work like this. And sometimes, unfortunately, some design parameters they collide between each other, and you have to undo what you've done before. And then that's where you need to innovate to find something that works for all the aspects.
For sure. I mean, it's a hell of a process. And Stewie, for you, when you're out there jumping these things, you've got to be able to fly every different type of canopy in obviously a very high-end way, in that you've got to be able to wring these canopies out. But you're going from flying, I would imagine, everything from a large student canopy to a teeny little prototype Petra. Does that get difficult to be going back and forth, or do you guys have it set that nope, we're only testing this canopy for this amount of time? Like as a pilot, a lot of times we're only allowed to fly one particular type of aircraft so that we don't mix our shit up, so I can't, it's got to be challenging.
Well, that's where Snelly comes in. He gets to jump all the student canopies, so that's wonderful for me.
What a guy.
No. So it's quite funny actually when you first, it's like when you first start skydiving, you don't want to jump, as you downsize, you want to jump the small stuff. And with test jumping, it was sort of the same. But now I quite enjoy jumping something a bit bigger, a bit more docile. But on any given day, we'll go out. So say Snelly and myself will go out, and because currently I'm the only one who can actually jump like a new prototype of a Petra. I will tend to focus on those if we have them. But if we're jumping, let's just say like a mid-range sort of prototype non-cross brace, and we've got a couple of them in multiple sizes, Snelly and I will do some jumps on them, get our feedback. But it's nice to swap as well, because my perspective isn't the only perspective that's important. And it's really good to get Snelly's inside as well, because one of the things actually that is, I guess that I think about for myself is I love going fast. I'm a competition jumper as well and a swooper. So I just want everything to go super quick, but that's not what we need from everything. So Snelly's input is really, really good, because he might see things that I might just assume sometimes that, that's obvious, and it's not like I'm missing things. It's just two different perspectives. So
sure.
Snelly comes out, we tend to try and when we are jumping, go out. So Snelly comes out and we'll have two prototypes. We'll do a couple jumps and we might change, but it is a little bit odd changing from like on the same day jumping a Petra and then jumping a 149. But if I'm honest, if that Petra's not going well, it's bloody nice to get on the 149.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, I actually had one other question too, and I don't know if any of you guys have been involved with designing and production of tandem canopies.
Snelly.
I was going to say I've not been involved in like the original tandem design was well before my time at Aerosports, but after I guess the world started opening up after the pandemic. Like we had a real period of like it's almost like every tandem order in the system just disappeared, and we were like, oh shit, like there's no tandem jumping happening. But I mean, man, that's come back with a vengeance. Like we're getting so many orders for tandem canopies right now, which is awesome. Obviously, it means the world's getting back to it, and so many more people are getting to experience skydiving.
Sure.
But yeah, like where the tandem is definitely built like a workhorse for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the majority of my skydives were taking people on tandems, and I've jumped your guys' canopies quite a bit and absolutely loved them. They put me down on the beach in Paihia many a time with a smile on my face. Thank fuck, because that beach is pretty damn thin. But is there any thought, or has there been any thought in trying to change up or advance the design of those canopies, or is it just such a good working canopy that you're leaving well enough alone?
Yeah, of course. There's always thought about advancing any of our products, and the tandem has been around for a long time actually. It was designed before my time by JYRO. So yeah, we are making prototypes, and we are trying different things, and actually the tandem is the only canopy I've been involved with as a test jumper.
Really?
As a passenger.
I was going to ask, when it comes to test jumping a tandem canopy, do you have an instructor just jumping out with a weight bag on his front, or are you actually putting another person? And that just answered the question. How was that?
That was terrifying. And now we're trying to move on to other solutions, because, well, if you're trying something like a really small modification, you can have it jumped with anyone as a passenger, and because you just want to try the slider a few centimeters shorter or something. But if you want to do something innovative, it's really hard to find passengers. So you'll have to get two test jumpers at the same time. And so we're trying to move to different things and to design the tandem prototypes as small as we can, so they can be used with a sandbag as a weight. And to get to the same kind of wing loading we're looking at, but with a canopy that is actually more in the 250 range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we actually, that does make us sound pretty bad. Also, I just want to touch on the point there, Julian, how he's nervous jumping a tandem as a passenger, and it's a tandem prototype. It's like a student canopy, and he's firing out these Petras with issues on line sets. Thanks, mate. What a guy.
You
It's all
chose your
perspective.
job, Chris.
I chose my job, that's right. But we do actually have a system now, a harness in place for the tandem stuff, because like Julian said, we can't find, like, chucking two test jumpers is one thing, but also we want to have that option to, when you're jumping the canopy, you get to focus on it and there's no other variable, and obviously a person is another variable that we can do without.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest question mark in every tandem I've ever taken, is what the student's going to do. Whether it's an experienced jumper or not, you just don't know. It's another human being strapped to you. So now, as I think we're rolling just a little over an hour now, and I still want to know what do you guys think the future holds? Is there anything you guys can talk about that's in the works, or an idea, or something that's, like, can you whet people's appetites on what might be coming?
Build them up, Julian. What are we working on, buddy? I'll leave this one to you.
Well, the pandemics disturbed us a little bit in production, as Chris Snell was saying before. So, and at the moment we cannot test jump because of the lockdown, but we are really pumped up, and we're really looking forward for the end of December and January. It's gonna be the summer in New Zealand, and we have a lot of ideas we wanna test, and hopefully it will lead to a lot of new products in the next year or the next couple of years. So it's been a bit quiet this year, but we're really excited, and we're working on many different projects. I think we mentioned the Petra 2. We have had the Anna in as a project for a while now. We are working on tandems. We're working on many different things. I have no idea what will come on the market first and when, but we're really looking forward to this summer in New Zealand, and to do as many test jumps and try as many things as we can.
Well, and hopefully you guys are able to get as much as you want out of it. I know that especially when it comes to the performance stuff, I cannot envision myself seeing something that's going to fly at a higher level than the Petra already does. And it kind of redefined canopy piloting when it came out. I can't even imagine what comes next. So, because I already have to turn away or squint half of the time I'm watching people swooping these canopies, because they're so fast. So I can't imagine what comes next. I can't.
Well, that's what's awesome with swooping, is that it's the performance is open, it's infinite. You can always go further, you can always go faster. It's a bit different from classic accuracy. When you do zero, you cannot really do much better.
Right.
Swooping, we hope to break again the 200 meters barrier, and then we can keep going to 250 or more.
In regard to those, have you, I mean, obviously you put the canopy out and were pleasantly surprised at just how well it's done. But have you watched these guys that come in and seen them do something that you just never expected to get more performance out of it? Because I've seen some of the strangest shit I've ever thought I would see in harnesses being done to get that extra little bit of speed or that little bit more distance. I mean, are you watching what these guys are doing and kind of adjusting with that as well?
I don't know if you're talking about the mutant, maybe, or just
not even that. The first time I saw someone with their chest strap undone and the only thing that was in the top half of their harness were their wrists, because they're leaning so far forward. And then of course the mutant harness that they're doing that. And I mean, just the little things that the jumpers do to innovate, to be able to get more performance out of the stuff that you're designing it's mind blowing. It really is.
Yeah, it's a good indicator of where we can improve as well. Because these jumpers, Stu is one of them, but we are sponsoring many other people. They do so many jumps, and they do them on a swoop pond with a consistency that is mind-blowing. So they can compare really small variations, and so they can really guide us to know where we can improve. That doing this really improve my swoop, so that this can give us an idea about what to do on a canopy.
Nice. Well, I mean, I'm just consistently blown away at what you guys have been able to do and put out, especially considering when I started jumping, and for the first half of my time in the career, there was no such thing as NZ Aerosports. You guys are, in my mind, you guys are still the new kids on the block, and you're on the podium every damn time. So I'm just, yeah, it's impressive. Now I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris, to tell everybody how they find out about all things NZ Aerosports and how they follow you guys individually.
Yeah, so if you want to follow any of the NZ Aerosports stuff, you can follow us on our Facebook page. It's Icarus Canopies by NZ Aerosports, and then the same on Instagram. And then we are with ramping up over summer. We're going to be hopefully pumping out a lot more R&D content, so we'll get to tease you guys and show you a bit more of what we're doing behind the scenes. And then, yeah, I mean, myself, if you want to follow me, you can find me on Instagram too. Snelly, I'm not sure if he wants to give us his handle or anything like that.
I was going to say, I'm actually one of those boring people that just write status updates like stayed home again because of a pandemic and that kind of shit. So it's really not that interesting, but the fun stuff's on the Aerosports page. So
okay, so follow NZ Aerosports and Stewie.
Yeah, man, that sounds good to me. Let's go.
Fair enough. Oh, any last points to get out before we sign off there, gentlemen?
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
For having us. And I think, I know for everyone listening, you want us to pump out things as quickly as we can, but it's just like the dragons in the Game of Thrones for those first few seasons. It's coming. It's just going to take a little minute, but it's coming.
Awesome.
We want to do it too.
Yeah.
And Stewie, my only other request is that you keep giving me awesome intros to put at the beginning of the podcast, because I think they like your intros more than they like hearing me talk about most of this stuff.
Oh yeah. Maybe we can come up with one together for the next one.
There you go. We'll do something fun.
A little collab.
Well, gentlemen, I know we're all over the planet on this one. We got some up early, some in the evening, and me way past my bedtime. But thank you guys so much for joining me. It was fun, and I love finding out all this shit that I have literally zero knowledge of, and especially when it comes to the production of the canopy and what goes into making our sport go the way it goes. Man, this was fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you, Dean. Pleasure
Awesome.
as
Thank you.
always.
All right, guys, have a great one. See ya.
See ya.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by JYRO. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to JYRO.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available, hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.